And we are live. We're all live here from different places. I'm Alan Levine, your host for today's Virtually Connecting. I'm coming to you from the metropolis of Strawberry, Arizona. And we've got some fine people on hand squeezing in Fredericksburg from the Digital Pedagogy Lab. And so why don't you guys first say hello. Oh, I do a gimmick sometimes. So I think, Twitter's kind of, Twitter's going downhill so bad. I think we need to get back to tweeting about food. So tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you had for breakfast. So I had banana bread with homemade plum jam. Okay, Fredericksburg, take it away.
I'll start since I'm over here, and we'll do it linearly, maybe. Cindy Richard. I'm from Davidson College in Davidson, North Carolina. And for breakfast, I had a donut. It was a bacon maple donut. It was very special.
You had me at bacon.
I'm Ashleigh Wade. I am from Richmond, Virginia. And for breakfast, I had fruit and a very sweet pastry.
Daniel Lyons. I too am from Davidson College, and I too had a maple bacon donut from Sugar Shack, which I found out that it's a kind of mini chain that's up and down the East Coast, and it was amazing. Amazing.
He says that because he's Canadian. It's got maple.
It was maple bacon, homage to Canada kind of thing. I was sad it wasn't back bacon, but whatever.
I'm Dan Hubbard. I'm from Fredericksburg. I was boring. I had oatmeal.
Good to see you, Dan. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been.
I'm Kris Shaffer. I'm also, I guess, now from Fredericksburg. I've been here long enough, Mary Washington. And I had a scrambled egg at home with a few bacon bits in it so that then I could have a pastry here. So
look at this. We're connecting with bacon. There's a theme going, and sometimes that just emerges. And I'll call out the remote people. So I'll go to Jim Stauffer he's from far north.
So I'm Jim Stauffer from Aurora College. I teach adult literacy and adult literacy and basic education. And I'm in my front yard overlooking the lake. I'm not sure if you can catch the view of the lake on the window reflected behind me there, but about a 40-minute flight from Yellowknife in a small plane. That's how we get in and out of here. And I'm also a graduate student at Royal Roads University in a master's program in learning and technology.
Excellent. And now we'll go over to Keegan Long-Wheeler.
All right. My name is Keegan. I'm an educational technologist from the University of Oklahoma. And what I had for breakfast was yogurt and granola. And that's it.
You're healthy. Oh, Jim, we didn't get your breakfast order.
I was just going to start my breakfast, put coffee on when the alarm rang and reminded me to sit up for joining this hangout. So I'm going to have some bacon after we're done here.
Breakfast. One can say Jim is having us for breakfast.
Okay, and then to Laura Ritchie in the UK, where it's kind of late, right?
Yeah, it's nearly supper time. I'm Laura Ritchie. I'm professor of learning and teaching at the University of Chichester. I'm also a cellist, and I am sitting in the lunchroom at the university after a long day here, and I had breakfast in this very room. And yes, I had bacon, hash browns, toast, and eggs, and a cup of tea.
I think we're going to call this thing Bacon Connecting. And Stephen Bishop, say hello and all that stuff.
Hi, Stephen Bishop here from Vancouver, British Columbia. I work at Douglas College as an online learning designer, and I'm also a curriculum developer and instructor for a continuing education program here that has to do with sustainability. For breakfast, I had a green smoothie with some greens from my garden and a piece of sourdough spelt bread or something like that. So I'm starting to get hungry listening to the more substantial breakfast that you all have.
You could have thrown bacon in that smoothie so easily. Great to see you. And so Laura asked me, like, oh my God, I'm not prepared for this. What do I have to say? And I was like, you just say whatever you want. It's conversational. And so, we want to turn it over to the people in Fredericksburg to either say what's going on or, I think, since Kris is the leader of the track, I know I'm eager to hear about some of the things that you guys are doing, because I expect in Kris's sessions you're actually doing things, not just talking about things, right?
Yeah. Doing some of both. I got two of my track members here. They can fill you in on a little bit of that. Maybe, but
You go ahead. You go ahead.
I talk to them all the time on this. This is your first rodeo.
Okay, for me, it's been amazing. We're starting to do some coding in R, and I have not done coding since the 1980s. So 30 years later, I'm back into coding. And in addition to that, we've had some really good discussions. Today we did digital redlining, and that was an amazing short discussion, but the kind that leaves you with a lot of thoughts of what we need to do and what we need to change. So it's been awesome.
And for those who don't know, I'm not going to say too much, but for those who don't know, if you check out my Twitter feed, I have tweeted out a lot of stuff that we've been doing in our track. So, and Kris was very good the way he structured the class. He sent out a full schedule and all the stuff that we were going to kind of do beforehand. So and that's in the open. So all the links are out there. Or I've also I blogged 2 days in a row now, which is like a record for me. And a lot of it has to do with the data lit track. So if you're really interested in the data literacy track here, you can check out stuff there.
Very cool. So
Are you?
Yeah.
The domain of one's own track. So we've been talking a lot about how to give students their own domain and how we would use that as a pedagogical tool, but also as a tool for the students to have something of their own that's like separate from what we have as teachers, that's separate from the university. So today we actually did a tools parade. So we talked about different digital tools that we can use on our domains and have students use on their domains as well.
So which kind of tools in the parade stuck out to you? And I have a selfish reason for asking.
Okay, well, for me, the tools that stuck out were the ones, so I guess just from a personal perspective, the curation tools that we talked about, because I actually have my students do a curation project. But one that was interesting too was the mapping tools. So we talked about story map, and there were like a bunch of other ones that I'm blanking on right now, but I like those tools too, just because I like maps, even though I don't necessarily use them in my classes.
Have you ever done the domain thing? Is this all new to you?
Yeah, this is really new to me. I mean, I have my own website, but my school doesn't have the domain of one's own program. So I've heard about it kind of in passing, but it is a new platform.
There's a few people who are heavily involved in domains projects, including Alan, who does a lot, and Keegan. I don't know who else is here. Well, here.
It goes without saying. No, I'm asking, yeah, because next week I'm doing a project in Toronto, and we're bringing in some teachers who are going to have like their very first experience, and so trying to frame it and justify it is an interesting piece, and also not to overwhelm them with the horrendous first look at the cPanel.
Yeah, and Brittany's over here too, by the way. We're in the design track.
Hey, Brittany.
And we're talking later with Amy and Amy from the design track, so I won't go too deeply into that, but we're kind of, I would say the thing that we're focusing around is that design is a moral action, and I think everything's kind of come out of that, but it's, yes, we talk a lot, Alan, but we were promised that we were gonna do something concrete this afternoon.
That wasn't a criticism, well. Oh, it's an awkward silence. Come on, guys, jump in. This is like, there's never awkward silences in a hallway conversation, is there?
Any questions from people out there? Keegan or Jim or Laura?
Yeah, I had a question about how much support are you giving for people actually developing content on their domain? Back when Jim Groom started DS 106, it was, hey, I'm going to Italy for Christmas and we're starting this new MOOC in the new year. Here's some stuff for you to do. Go get your own domain. So it was like, oh, well, if Jim Groom says do it, it must be doable. And well, you know, a lot of things that were suddenly open to me, but you know, then comes the whole thing of developing content. So what does Reclaim Hosting do for that?
Well, so in Mary Washington, I mean, I teach DS 106 here as well. Alan's taught it, right? So like we have several layers of support. So Reclaim has some support, but the Division of Teaching and Learning Technologies that I work in supports faculty in a variety of ways. It's not always tech support. We try to do more collaborative work with faculty to help them brainstorm good pedagogical possibilities around some tooling in, share some experiences from ourselves and other faculty so that we don't have to make the same mistakes that are the new mistakes. Right, and then we also have the Digital Knowledge Center that Martha Burtis runs, which is a couple of years old now. That's full of student tutors to help the students. For us, both with DS 106 and for Domain and Run Zone, that they have the students are prepared to help other students with, whether that's getting WordPress set up, using things besides WordPress, doing digital media projects, as well as other things that aren't necessarily domains related, like for annotation, using mapping and timeline tools, which could go either way, domains or not, 3D printing, that kind of stuff. So like we have developed a lot of infrastructure of support here for students and faculty, and that really makes a big difference. I mean, you can do it without it, but there's a lot more you can do with it. And then there becomes a lot more of a community around it. It's not just this class or this class plus the people they meet on Twitter. There's people in person, people online, people that are in positions of authority, and others that are like peers that are helping them out. That whole big community around that, like it starts to grow. It's not the whole campus by any means, but it's a bigger and bigger chunk.
Yeah.
And I will say, I'm curious. Sorry.
No, go.
I was curious coming to UMW where domains started, and I know, the center here has a lot of structure and support, and it's well established. Having a knowledge center, what that would look like. And there's a lot of faculty from UMW who are in some of the tracks. And so I was talking with some of them about like how much of that is visible throughout the campus. And it sounds like it really is. Like you are well known for supporting conversations about digital pedagogy. And that's where it comes from. And so I think that's, it's great to see.
Cool. Yeah, I mean,
done a lot.
Yeah, there's still more inroads to make, right? But yeah, there's been a lot of hard work from a lot of people to build those bridges and those connections, even as there's been a lot of turnover in the department. To be able to keep building new bridges is important.
And this is pretty small, Jim, but like, I mean, Reclaim, they're doing the hosting, and so and they have a community at Discourse site. It's generally pretty techy, and so I kind of want to encourage some of our new people to go to there. So I lobbied, and they created. I have a newbies corner area. So and one of the things is like people don't know how to ask for help, or they say like, oh my God, my question's so stupid, or I'm not techie, and they kind of get in that paralysis. And so I always find the first thing is like getting people comfortable with saying I'm stuck. And does anybody know how to do X? And so often people try to like do it in an isolated manner, and you just get so much farther when you just lean on whether it's a Twitter hashtag network, whether it's a class group, or Slack, or any place where people can congregate to ask questions.
I've got a question. So my question is, when I forget which one of you said you were doing the new content, trying not to overwhelm people with things, and then building on what Ellen was just saying, people don't know how to necessarily ask for the help. I'm in the midst of running, it's a distance learning course with a face-to-face 1 week residential in the middle. We're in the residential at the moment. But what's come to light is in the beginning of the distance learning, people were, they were having all these digital literacy problems, and nobody knew because they didn't say it. And so I'm wondering, are there any tips, things that you've learned over the past couple of days that you might embed or suggest that we could do as activities or things to both encourage people's confidence, success and help engage our learners in a good way.
Laura, I'll take a stab at that. One of the things that Kris has done in the track is what he's calling pair coding. It's called pair coding. And so, you know, I haven't done coding for 30 plus years. I'm very, very rusty. And I'm paired with someone who is much more comfortable with it, much younger, and is an excellent teacher. So even while he's learning, he's teaching me. And that's really helped with the fear and paralysis area. So it's been very, very useful.
Yeah, I think anytime that we can be honest with our students about what we're still learning, as well as willing to listen to them and their expertise and give them a means to communicate that to us and to their peers, that makes a big difference. These things are changing so fast that the model of like we learn it and then we teach it, we just don't have the time to cycle through that process before things become either so permeated or even obsolete that the class doesn't have the opportunity to bring the critical lens to it. So when something's new, it's when it's new that we really want to promote that critical lens with our students. And that's the point where we're not going to be the experts in it, and the process and the tech is going to change and evolve before it goes away anyway. So like being, some uses the phrase like lead learners or simply being open about what we do and don't know and how we can all contribute our expertise and showing each other how to learn these things together can be important, helps. There are two specific activities that people here put together. Sorry, just real quick, I want to give a plug. Lee Bissett has curated a domain of one's own curriculum and has started to do some work with some others outside of university here, but a lot of people have contributed to a set of modules that we use. It's on umwdtlt.com on our documentation page. A bunch of it can go anywhere from 15 minutes to 2 class meetings to help people think about digital identity, about copyright, intellectual property, representation of like gender and race and orientation online, and the impacts of that on tech, as well as some of our digital studies courses. And a lot of people, this is great about the community here. A lot of people are sharing their course materials online. And when they're like one-off things that you can just do in your class, the daily create things from DS 106, like there are a lot of cool things out there that people can grab onto and plug in that in some cases are just really small, but can open somebody's eyes a little bit.
Yeah, Lee's documentation stuff. Well, all yours is really helpful. I've been using it, leveraging for my projects too. I was it's so obvious, but it feels really good to help someone else to answer a question, and like, do we tap into enough of that? And I know generally when I have to explain something, I end up learning about it myself more, having to explain it to someone else. And just like creating those spaces where it's not relying on one person, the expert coder or subject matter expert, for people to feel like, hey, I don't know everything about, French literature, but I do know this. There's more opportunities when you can enable that. I just think it creates a great kind of level of energy among a group.
Mm-hmm. I think in particular for our campus and from my experience is especially, so I do a lot of one-on-ones with both faculty and grad students and different kinds of folks. And while I'm trying to both get them introduced to the system or to WordPress or whatever it is, one of the things that I really try and emphasize is that, in our time together, like this is a safe space to fail. Like if we break it, we're gonna fix it. Like that's not a problem. So there's always gonna be a way out and a way forward, no matter what we do to the system. If we install a plugin and the whole site goes down, well, we'll figure it out. We'll fix it. So that's been one aspect I think that's been very crucial in terms of some folks, especially some folks that are just getting into it. Yeah.
Well, and it's a very techie mindset that breaking things is just part of what you do. And it's not something that all of our faculty or our students are comfortable with or have trained under. And so having the opportunity to work one-on-one or on a small group with faculty or students, let them know if you're breaking it, that means you're pushing in the right directions, and we can bring it back. We have backup systems in place, or let's kick the tires before you put all in, get it perfect. Let's just see what we can do with it and help them become comfortable with that. Some people don't like the word failure, just like breaking stuff or just seeing what happens, which walls follow. They're Legos. We can put them back together again.
Yeah, I've been using from Martha's keynote at the Reclaims conference, her kind of structure in domains of naming, like the name is so important, but the building, then the breaking, and I love the way she framed it, and then knowing, and they constantly swirl around, but the building and breaking is so iterative. And
speaking of breaking,
yeah.
Sorry, Alan. We have a workshop that's coming. We didn't realize a workshop has to be in our room here in about 5 minutes or so.
That's okay. Break it.
We're saying, hey, let me in.
Yeah.
We got to get there.
No, fight for the room. Defend the room.
I don't know. I mean, I love you, Alan, but I've known Robin for a long time. And
oh, you didn't tell me it's Robin. I'm giving up.
Good to see you, Alan.
See you, Dan. Good to see you. Any last words, like what you hope to get to by the end of this week there?
The thing that I'm really into is still Robin DeRosa's. I heard her say this a few years ago, and I'm really feeling it from the vibe of a lot of people here. The web is a workshop, not like a final publishing space, and that everything doesn't have to be perfect and everything once you put it up there. So that would just be my quick 2 cents.
Yeah.
Ashleigh?
I'm just really looking for, hoping to be able to take some of these things back to my own university and within the different communities that I'm in that are talking about pedagogy. So I really I'm looking forward to doing that.
That's great. What do you teach, Ashleigh?
I teach women's and gender studies and also media studies.
That's cool. Well, thanks you so much for joining us. I hope you had fun.
Just rope those workshop participants into, at least introduce them to virtually connecting.
They know what it is now. All right.
That'd be
Everyone
cool.
have a good
night. All right, thanks, guys. Well, and that's how it goes. We sometimes stick around and talk a little bit, but if you guys have to go, that's fine too. But I leave the cameras rolling until my dog says it's time to go for a walk.
I'll
thanks, Alan.
Around a bit longer.
Hey, good to see you, Jim. I'm going to get up there someday. Next time I go across Canada, I'm going north.
Oh, come on up. Well, it's paved all the way to Yellowknife.
I got 4-wheel drive.
Oh, I thought you were bringing the motorcycle.
Oh, no, it was a motorcycle. It was a truck. I didn't do it with the motorcycle.
Oh, okay.
And sorry, Stephen, we didn't get to hear from you, but I hope you enjoyed watching and laughing, hopefully.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. Like I said, I was at the one in Vancouver a couple weekends ago, and I'm just trying to stay virtually connected, and this is a great way. One question that came up for me was, and they're gone now, but I just wondered about if there was any student voice at Fredericksburg. At Vancouver, I didn't meet any students. At Douglas College, this comes up a lot. We're trying to get students to come to working groups and get their input on, things that ultimately will turn into decisions about how courses are developed or policies developed, different things like that. So I'm really curious if anybody is working along those lines or succeeded in finding ways to get students involved at this level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. I imagine, there's students who work like the Digital Knowledge Center that Martha runs, and there's students who usually work in DTLT. There's always that thing where usually the students who get involved are your atypical students. Mm-hmm. So then you say, how do you get the average or the unusual student voice? That's a big challenge.
I might have to sign off too. Sorry. But I'm going to tweet more. Okay.
Good to see you, Laura. Thanks. Nice to see you.
Okay, goodbye, everybody.
Okay, thanks for joining us. I'm going to stop the broadcast.